Still they are preparing.
ನಾನು ಗೀತ ಬೇಡ, ನಂಗೆ ಅದ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಆಡಿಯೋ ಸೆಟ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಗೀತೆಂಗ್ ಕೇಳ. ಗೀತೆಂಗ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ. ಗೀತಾ, I have joined one Zoom. ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಬರ್ತದೆ. ನೀವು
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the organizing team, I, Dr. Padmavati S., Vice Principal, Student Affairs of MGMCRI, welcome you all for today's SBV Connect webinar session on the topic E-Governance in Indian Health Sciences Universities. SBV Connect is an official webinar session hosted from the desk of the Vice Chancellor, Sri Balaji Vidyapith, deemed to be University, Pondicherry, India, which is scheduled on third Wednesday of every month. In line with the vision of our university, we have set the goal of SBV webinars as to disseminate broad knowledge, accurate information, and content of good quality related to education, research, and patient care to the target audience. The reason behind today's topic is that any higher education institution to reach global standards should adopt significant technological innovations not only for teaching and learning, but also to manage the activities of the institution to ensure effective institutional functioning. As e-governance is becoming the backbone of all health science universities, and it constitutes an absolute necessity to work on the quality framework, we have chosen this, and we hope that this session will fulfill your expectations. And I also thank everyone for joining us today. Your active participation is important throughout the session. Right now, we have everyone on mute to avoid background noises that may distract you from listening to the webinar. Throughout the presentation, we will be managing the chat functionality. You can enter your queries and comments at the end of each presentation, and according to the availability of time, we can address your queries immediately after each session or in the end. With this, let's move on to the first session on overview and relevance of e-governance. I take the privilege of introducing the speaker of the first session. I consider it a great honor to introduce the speaker of the first session, our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, Professor Subhash Chandra Parija. Professor Parija is an eminent academician, erudite medical microbiologist, avid researcher, and an able administrator. Being an internationally acclaimed parasitologist, he is having nearly 3.5 decades of rich and satisfying teaching, research, and administrative experience. His contribution as an author for more than 15 books and 350 research papers in national and international journals shows his commitment, dedication, and total involvement in the chosen profession. He joins the select band of medical microbiologists who have been conferred with the Doctor of Science, a highest degree in research. Among his several accolades, a notable one to mention is that he is the recipient of the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy Award for his contribution to the development of medical microbiology. With this, now I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor to deliver his talk on the overview and relevance of e-governance.
Good afternoon. Warm greetings from Sri Balaji Vidyapith. Welcome to SBV Connect, a webinar series hosted by Sri Balaji Vidyapith, deemed to be university, popularly known as SBV. SBV Connect reaches out to the world on the third Wednesday of every month. The theme of today's webinar is e-governance in Indian health sciences universities. The last few decades have witnessed a rapid digitalization of processes and data at a global level. This electronic revolution is increasing efficiency, transparency, and outcomes across all sectors and professions. Governance and administration have been no exception to this. And thus, the term e-governance has come into existence. The E in e-governance stands for electronic. Thus, e-governance is basically associated with carrying out the functions of governance through the utilization of information and communication technology. In other words, e-governance is the application of information and communication technology in governance. E-governance is rapidly becoming the backbone of a nation's economy in today's world of internet-enabled systems and processes. E-governance has predominantly been utilized and discussed with respect to the functioning of governments. However, e-governance can be applied to higher education institutions too, and can significantly enhance the quality of their functioning. Well-functioning higher education systems contribute to the overall development of the nation. ICT principles in education enables customization options in learning, better interactivity with the content, cost effectiveness, and wide reach to diverse audiences across various sections of the society. ICT provides efficient storage and retrieval of data, besides facilitating instantaneous transmission of information. In addition, ICT enables rapid data processing and speeds up administrative and decision-making processes and helps to enhance transparency and accountability. Administrators can reap all these benefits and harness the power of technology by incorporating ICT into governance. Broadly, areas of implementation of e-governance in health institutions include administration, service delivery, and the involvement of stakeholders in policy making. Incorporating the principles of e-governance in higher education institutions leads to ease of administration, empowerment of stakeholders, prevention of duplication of work, cost effectiveness, and ease of service delivery to students, parents, general public, and most importantly, patients in health sciences institutions. E-governance can help in overriding administrative delays in the education system. On a special note, e-governance enables institutions to reduce paper consumption and leads to a paperless workplace, thus conserving the natural resources. With the employment of e-governance, stakeholders can be empowered to achieve more at a faster pace and with greater creativity due to reduction and automation of mundane and repetitive work. Educational institutes benefit from the computerization and automation of several routine areas of functioning, such as application and admission processes, scheduling appointments and meetings, human resource and personnel management, maintenance of student and faculty database, academic schedules and timetables and attendance, library services, examination and feedback, transport, finance, hostels, security, etc. And overall accreditation process. E-governance also includes the use of task management and collaboration software, shared online calendars, digital data repositories, and enterprise-level databases. These are powerful tools that can significantly boost an institution's capacity for quality assurance programs. Further, e-governance can enable connectivity among similar e-governing institutions, thus facilitating a consortium of collaborative growth and progress. It needs to be emphasized that research, education, and patient care, all three are considered cardinal in the sustenance of the endeavors of health sciences universities. E-governance is the X factor in this context because it has the capacity to integrate curricular governance, research administration, and hospital management. However, there are several potential barriers in the implementation of e-governance. These include security and privacy issues, limitation in access to computer technology by different stakeholders, the digital divide, high initial cost for setting up the e-governance solutions, resistance to change, rapid updates, and change in the technology. Hence, I wish to emphasize that people, processes, technology, and resources need to be effectively harmonized in order to realize the optimization of e-governance and thus make the vision of Digital India a reality. Successful implementation of e-governance in health science universities will yield rich dividends for all stakeholders, including students, faculties, other staffs, and patients as well. This will translate into substantial benefits for society and the nation as a whole. I would now like to request the distinguished resource persons to share their knowledge, discerning views, and comments that would go a long way in the fructification of this all-important endeavor, namely e-governance in health sciences universities.
Good afternoon. Now we will be inviting the senior people to give the talk. For the first, we would request Professor Amit Banerjee, sir. He is an eminent cardiothoracic surgeon and an academic administrator. He is a pro-chancellor of Shiksha Anusandhan University at Bhubaneswar. Formerly, for the same university, he has been a vice-chancellor. And he was also a vice-chancellor of the West Bengal University of Health Sciences at Kolkata. He had been a professor of excellence at G.B. Pant Institute of Medical Education and Research, New Delhi. He was also director professor and head of cardiothoracic surgery at Maulana Azad Medical College and G.B. Pant Hospital, New Delhi, and also at JIPMER, Pondicherry. He has been a Dr. B.C. Roy awardee. He has received the State Government of Delhi Award, a Lifetime Achievement Award of Environmental Council. His name has figured in the 1995 edition of Limca Book of Records. He is a WHO Fellow at the Harvard Medical School and Washington University School of Medicine. He is associated with various institutions like Department of Science and Technology, with CSIR, DBT, with IIT Kharagpur, with Medical Council of India and National Board of Examinations, and with Union Public Service Commission in various capacities. Now we have with us Professor Amit Banerjee, sir, who will be sharing his views on e-governance in examinations. Professor, sir, the board is yours.
Am I audible to all of you, please?
Sir, you're audible,
Okay.
and you will have to share. Can you share your presentation also, sir?
Yes, I'd like to share my screen now. Just give me a moment. Okay, so first of all, let me wish the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Parija, a very good afternoon, and express my gratitude for the opportunity. I'd also like to welcome all my colleague resource persons who are participating in this webinar. And I also take this opportunity of congratulating Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth for having found a very high place in the NIRF ranking of recent times. So now to move on, just to recapitulate what Professor Parija said, e-governance is the integration of information and communication technology in the daily operations of governance. But the history of e-governance in India goes way back to 1987 with the launching of NICNet, the National Satellite-Based Computer Network. And 2 years later, a district information system of the National Informatics Center program was launched. And subsequently, NICNet was extended via the state capitals to all the district headquarters in 1990. So e-governance in this country has been there for quite some time now. Till 2000, e-governance was under the domain of the Planning Commission. After that, it was handed over under the domain of the newly created Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. In 2009, the National Mission on Education through Information and Communication Technology, NMEICT, submitted by the Department of Higher I think that is where the real thrust to introducing e-governance in India was brought about. In a nutshell, e-governance covered one single system covering all our needs, all needs of the citizens of the country. And this, as you can see, this included education. E-governance in education did also include online examination, which is the topic which has been given to me today. And as you can see, that the various aspects of education that were covered under the domain of e-governance were on the screen. Now, when we talk of examination, and particularly when we are talking of examination from the viewpoint of healthcare universities, we find that there is quite a bit of overlapping nomenclature. There are certain examinations are called tests and examination. Under examination, we have written, viva voce, we have got the practicals, clinicals. Then there is something called internal assessment, which adds up to the final examination. Then the word evaluation also comes, and whenever we get our papers rechecked, we call it a re-evaluation. So, these are all overlapping nomenclatures. But under Bloom's taxonomy, this is how the term education has been described. It is synthesis, evaluation, analysis, application, understanding, and knowledge with the usual connectivities. To summarize, examination is basically a subsystem in a wider system of evaluation, which measures both qualitative as well as quantitative aspects of the human mind. It reflects the changes that take place in different domains, and the different domains are cognitive, affective, and psychomotor of one's personality as a result of structured instruction. Now, at this point of time, I would like to say that though information and communication technology is a very mighty tool, it has basically so far been underutilized. And in the academic scenario, particularly looking at the examination scenario, it has been used extensively only for the entrance examinations for quite some time by both government agencies like NEET, JEE, CAT, etc., and also for private individual institutional competitions. It has been used very extensively for the exit protocols for declaration and dissemination and assimilation of results. And in certain limited ways, institutional e-examination requiring dedicated examination centers have been applied within the domain of e-examination, where there are certain infrastructural requirements like array of computers for conducting exams, security measures, tamper-proof security policies, etc., etc. So till recently, the application of examination within the domain of e-governance can at best be described as a computerized or automated examination process. And according to a recent report of the government, 59% of the universities are providing online admission services, 97% are displaying the results online, 18% are handling exam-related grievances online, but only 5% have so far been offering on a regular basis online examination services. But recently, with the introduction of the fourth industrial revolution, and before that, as cloud computing came into our ecosystem of computer sciences and communication technology, we have derived a fair amount of benefit, and cloud computing for institutions and students has actually helped us in personalized learning, cost containment, easy and wide accessibility, and user friendliness. And all this, the best part is all this has happened without any additional infrastructure. And now we believe that with time getting on, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science, 3D printing, all these technologies are going to further accentuate the role played by, particularly in the medical college or in the healthcare institutions, the role played by e-governance in terms of examination related activities. Now, when we talk of an examination, there are three broad areas we are concerned about. One is these are the challenges. One is the question setting. As you know, as all eminent teachers and examiners, you know that question setting can really become a very big issue at the time of examinations unless we look at all the proper parameters, and in particular, unless we stick to the clear-cut guidelines and the syllabus covered, and also look at the average difficulty level. The conduct of examinations goes much beyond the examination cell, much beyond the controller of examinations desk, because we have got the issues of malpractices, then dictation of answers through microchips, use of electronic devices, then connivance of invigilators, or the opposite, use of muscle power to threaten invigilators to bring in bad scenario in terms of conduct of examinations. And a major concern while conducting an online examination is the apparent risk of malpractices that comes due to lack of human invigilation. Now, this is a very pertinent question when we talk of online examinations. And the sad truth today is that students are much more creative with techniques of cheating in the examination. And the last challenge, the third challenge, is about the evaluation, because evaluation is something that is based on I am being unmuted every time by the host. I am being unmuted every time by the host. Anyway, I'll rectify it. So evaluation can be biased. There can be handwriting issues, the number of pages, language, etc., etc. These have been the challenges of examinations. But what we need to understand, if we are going to bring in the examination within the domain of e-governance, if we want to bring examination to the desktop or the laptop of the student at his home, we have to first ensure that the sanctity of the examination is not violated. And therefore, we need a safe browser with an unshareable screen. Then there should be limited access of the candidate to shortcuts for copy, paste, and screen capture. And every time a candidate tries to open a new window with the intent of malpractice, an alert should be flashed. And after any 3 such alerts, the exam gets terminated. Then even more than that, we need to be careful about the Munna Bhai syndrome. So the remote candidate identification authentication is extremely important. And I believe that in coming days, artificial intelligence will play a very significant security related role in maintaining sanctity of the examinations. And lastly, the timer of each question has to be maintained. So what remedy do we have for this? The remedy we have is creating remote proctoring suites, by virtue of which the candidates carrying out the examination writing work can be monitored. We have to also ensure for e-examination that scalability and concurrent consistency is maintained. There is data encryption during document transit, and there is security of record storage and retrieval, because particularly data encryption plays a very important role in preventing unauthorized access to the question banks, the answer sheets, and other confidential resources. The proctored examination is something I would like to tell a little detail about, because this is going to be the norm in the coming days as we are more and more into applying e-examination in the healthcare institutions. So it is the process of monitoring students and can be remotely done. Only thing is that, you know, to enforce the proctorial system, the candidate needs a suitable desktop device or laptop or mobile phone, access to the internet, a functioning webcam and mic, which should be within the network and within the access of the proctorial team. There are several ways of proctoring. When there are a limited number of students, there can be live online proctoring, or there can be recorded proctoring in which the student's performance is recorded and then it can be reviewed. Or there, you know, now there are softwares which are coming up by virtue of which we can do automated advanced proctoring without the intervention of any individuals. Now, the online assessment in medical education, the current trends are that the most important issue which has particularly come up with the COVID-19 ecosystem, in our ecosystem, is how to conduct the practical examinations, is how to carry out the clinical, how to evaluate the clinical acumen of the students, and at the same time maintain the sanctity of the examinations. So the novel crisis in the era of novel coronavirus is the challenges of disrupted clinical training. So first of all, the clinical training has been disrupted, and this is further compounded by inability of using a hospital-based platform to conduct clinical proficiency evaluation on the part of the examination. Therefore, particularly in the clinical parts of the professional examinations, the last two, it becomes a very big issue as to how to use e-governance in carrying out or in evaluating a candidate when we are unable to bring him into a hospital milieu to examine him for the clinical thing. So what we can do is we can actually improvise the online clinical examination. We can have a web-based role-playing patient interview through video conferencing. And this can be made something like an app with interactive responses. So there can be interactive dynamic responses based on the keywords in the candidate who is going to type out all his answers. So once the candidate types out his questions to the e-patient or to the patient who is being interviewed through video conferencing, based on his questions, there can be multiple responses, and further leading responses on the screen can come up based on the candidate's sequence of patient examinations, his sequence of investigations, which he can pick out from a large list, so that we know exactly, whether he is able to apply his knowledge and wisdom and applicability of what he has learned. And finally, when it comes to the final management, he can pick up 2 or more differential diagnoses from a list of 10. Likewise, a treatment response can be elicited by displaying multiple medications, devices, instruments, or procedure, and ask the candidate to pick up which are the ones relevant to the particular situation. And lastly, in order to really elicit whether the candidate has been able to, learn during his tenure in the medical college, whether he is safe to deal with a patient, we can prepare videos of patient management in which selective errors of judgment, selective errors of management can be introduced, and these videos can be played, and then the candidates can be required to identify the specific wrong steps and type out the correct version. So there is no clear-cut answer as to how exactly the clinical aspect of the medical school or the healthcare examinations are to be brought under the domain of e-governance, although the theory part and possibly to some extent the laboratory part can definitely be brought. But at this point, it is good to share with you that the first ever online examination for medical students was carried out in England at the Imperial College of Medical School and St. Mary's Hospital, London, in the 3rd week of March 2020. And it was actually arranged within 2 days due to the sudden lockdown. And the candidates were allowed to carry their books. The candidates were allowed to refer to the internet. But I am just giving you the response of one candidate's first experience of appearing in this. And he says, and his friends agree, speaking to my friends, everyone still found it hard, even though we are allowed to have the whole internet at our disposal. The questions that worked well were the ones that required a multi-stage reasoning to get an answer, tested gray areas of the curriculum that could not be found online, or image or data interpretation. The few simple fact recall questions felt out of place in an open book exam, which reflected the limited time faculty had to deliver this examination. So basically, it was intelligent paper setting that set the day. And I think we can take this as a very positive development, and we can all get inspired by this. So this is what I had to share with you. And as I said, that there are no straightforward answers to how exactly in today's scenario, the examination system is likely to be incorporated holistically into the e-governance system. But having said whatever I had to say, I am here to listen to the wisdom and to the advice of all our seniors and all our esteemed colleagues as to how to carry on. Thank you very much. And thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir. So thank you so much for a very good talk. And there has been a question, sir. Can I share the question with you?
Sure.
Okay, sir. The Dr. Joseph has asked, has any pilot study of examination has been done in any Indian medical university? As the number of students are high, how feasible will it be? Can I repeat it?
Yes, I have heard the question, and I think it is an extremely pertinent question. And I'd like to share with Dr. Joseph that at this point of time, there are several medical colleges and several health universities which are actually trying out various modalities. And I understand that, in fact, in certain colleges in Telangana, they have already tried out what I had suggested, that, making a video presentation full of errors which could be identified and rectified. But the most important issue here is the large number of candidates who have to be examined. So what I feel is that, we need to still work very hard, and all of us have to resolve that, we have to make it possible, because we still do not know as of today as to how this novel coronavirus is going to progress in the next few months, and when exactly we can impart the way we wanted to give clinical training to the students, and how exactly we can actually elicit what they have learned. So I have a feeling the time has come to depend on a lot of not only YouTube videos, but also other videos. And I feel that, this is a challenge which each one of us to face. And most important is we have to share with each other our experiences, so that eventually it is our community of healthcare institutions which gets the maximum benefit out of this. Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Kalra. It is good to see you.
Yeah. Namaskar.
Thank you so
Your
much.
lecture.
Thank you so
Any other question?
Sir, as of
Any other question for?
no, sir. As of now, nothing, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So as of now, nothing. We will share your
Yeah.
email ID with all the participants, and
Yes.
we'll request them to post the questions to you, sir. I think
Thank
that
you.
will be the
Thank you.
best way to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Next, we have with us Professor O.P. Kalra, sir, who will be talking on the current scenario of e-governance in Indian health sciences universities. Professor O.P. Kalra, sir. Professor O.P. Kalra, sir, is a Vice Chancellor at Pandit B.D. Sharma University of Health Sciences at Rohtak, Haryana. He is currently holding the position of President, Association of Indian Health Sciences Universities, and he has been a Dean of Faculty of Medical Sciences at University of Delhi and Principal of University College of Medical Sciences at University of Delhi. He has a teaching experience of 38 years and has been a Professor of Medicine for more than 25 years. And he has received various awards. The most important one has been the Dr. B.C. Roy National Award in the Eminent Medical Teacher category. Kalra, sir, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'm a little sorry for request for rescheduling my talk 15 minutes later. In fact, I was held up with a meeting in the afternoon for some urgent work. And first of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks to my very dear friend, Professor Subhash Parija. I have been fortunate to visit Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University on a number of occasions during the last 4 or 5 years. Being a member of the Academic Council, I congratulate Professor Parija and the entire faculty and the other members of the staff at the Vidyapeeth, how much effort they are putting in to really upgrade the standards of the university. I'm also, I would like to thank my dear friend, Professor Tyagarajan. I didn't see him. I hope he's also there on the panel. Former Vice Chancellor of University of Madras and currently Dean Research and Professor of Eminence at SRMC Chennai. And my very dear friend, Professor Amit Banerjee. We have been together at the University of Delhi for the last few decades. And we have been together again as Vice Chancellors because he has been at West Bengal University of Health Sciences and later on at Shiksha Anusandhan University, both places as Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much for this kind invitation. to have me on this very important platform for discussion on e-governance. In fact, last 3 months, since we have been witnessing this COVID-19 pandemic, there have been several teleconferences, meetings through Zoom and other platforms on various issues such as online classes and governance of various educational institutions. And I appreciate that this is the first time this particular talk on e-governance in various universities has been organized by Professor Parija. Now, a part of the job has been made easier by Dr. Banerjee, because he has already talked about the e-governance in our how to do examinations particularly. In fact, we had a recent meeting in our Indian Health Science University's e-conclave, and we really discussed about this particular problem, and we wrote a letter to the Medical Council of India Board of Governors. And after that, they have issued this recent guidelines based on which we are all conducting the examinations. And I fully realize that in the current times, it's really very difficult. At this stage, probably we are not really fully prepared to have online examination, particularly for the practicals. And although we started our examinations yesterday, but then we are still trying to make sure that our external examiners and internal examiners all are physically present to conduct this examination. I'm sure the time will come when we can at least partly replace by our system with online teaching learning modules and also online evaluation system. So I'll restrict my talk mainly to the e-governance part of the health science universities. So now this picture, some of us may be familiar with. This is a picture of one of the oldest, probably the oldest university of the world, Nalanda University. And somehow during the initial few centuries, we have lagged behind as far as modernization of the education system is concerned. Recently, we felt that there was a need for us even to upgrade that university. And you may be familiar with this picture also. This is a new Nalanda University which has come up in that campus with all the facilities for e-governance and e-administration. So if we have to grow in the present day world, we have to grow with the recent times and we have to grow with the recent technology. The times when this is a picture of Sushruta, all of us must be familiar with this, when he was doing small group discussions, and here he is imparting the practical education to his students. At that time, this is the image which has been created because his first school or medical science, which was about 2,500 years ago, this was in Kashi, and there he used to impart this excellent surgical skills, particularly in the arts of rhinoplasty and other surgeries to his students. And now we are in a stage when the entire world is seeing a revolutionary change in the information and communication technology. And although it has already penetrated other streams to a large extent, such as engineering and various other technological branches, as far as we in medical universities are concerned, we have lagged a little bit, but then we are catching up very fast. And now that with COVID-19, we have been thrown into the fray. So we are now catching up. But as far as the overall scenario in various health science universities concerned, the approach to adopting ICT has been piecemeal and somewhat half-hearted during the last few decades. And we used to feel that, okay, just having computer hardware, internet connectivity, and having some application of the computer was enough to say that we are having e-resources in our university. And there have been very few medical institutions where ICT had been used. But now, of course, a lot of change has occurred during the last decade and a half. And if we use ICT in a systematic and efficient manner, then it can improve the overall functioning of the university, and it can make the life very convenient, efficient, and more transparent. Now, as far as running the university on e-governance is concerned, I'll be limiting my talk basically under the three headings. One is the digital university framework. The second is e-healthcare, and third is the e-education. The e-examination component of e-education has already been covered by Professor Amit. Now, coming to the first part, that is the digital university framework. Now, this means that this can be used to deliver various student services through a comprehensive app or technology, which integrates various services put together. And this can include data management about academics, about admission-related events or services, then online fee payments, and college management services, management of the examinations, augmenting the teaching learning activities, and then encouraging simulation-based learning, data analysis, monitoring attendance, etc., which is an important part to assess the eligibility of the candidates. There are several benefits of digital university framework, that all these services, they can be offered to the students at their doorstep. There is reduction in the data duplication effort at various levels. All these outputs are system generated, and so there is very little chance of an errors, and personalized services can be given to the students through their respective login IDs. And just with a single click, we can generate forms such as examination form, hall tickets for thousands of students. So for big universities, it's very difficult to manage it with manual work. And in addition, we can reduce the number of visits of the students to the college university for these kind of sundry jobs as collection of hall tickets, examination form, filling and all that. Similarly, for recruitment also, we can utilize these services. Then the direct student facilitation can be done so that whatever complaints are there, these can be referred to the respective branch, whether it's the affiliation branch or the college branch or the academics branch or examination branch. And this can lead to reduction in the workload of the university staff, college staff. Just the file going from one desk to the other, it can immediately move directly online to the concerned section. All the academic records, they can be made available in electronic form, and there'll be paperless transactions, and there'll be instant report generation, which is required very often by the administration. And of course, all these things can be done in a seamless manner, and data duplication can also be avoided. So that is as far as the data management about the students' enrollment and academics is concerned. The second part of the e-governance is the e-healthcare, which is very important as far as the clinician and patient interface is concerned. Now, this is very important, and we can deliver the patient care efficiently by adoption of the hospital management and information system softwares, HMIS, and which various states and various universities, health sciences universities, they can actually adopt according to their own specifications and requirements. Web-based applications can be used, and this can collect, process, and display the data in a very efficient, easy, and seamless manner. Now, there are various functions, particularly with regard to the patient care delivery, which can be integrated in this, such as patients' online registration and appointment modules for OPD, inpatients, laboratory modules, biochem, pathology, microbiology. All these labs can be integrated, and the results can reach directly to the patient, to the clinic, and the doctor can immediately see those results as soon as they are ready. Similarly, the radiology module is being adopted, whereby the registration of the patient and integration of the simple radiography, MRI, CT scan data can directly be shifted on through the PACS server to the doctor's clinics, where they can see. In addition to this, there is also a lot of saving, because you don't have to print all these reports, utilize the X-ray films and CT scan pictures. Prescriptions can be given, e-prescriptions can be given, and through pharmacy modules, you can easily maintain the drug inventory. And so immediately, as soon as we reach the trough level of certain drugs, the orders can be placed. So similarly, the assets and store management can be done. Yes, the human resource management module can also manage the human resources in various departments. Similarly, the medical record department, the medical legal registration, the operation theater management, and the mortuary services. All these things can be managed easily through the HMIS module. Last year, we got this inaugurated. Our Union Health Minister is there, and Minister for Cooperation is there. Our additional secretary and member parliament is there, where they inaugurated the hospital management information services in our institution. Now, the benefit of this is that you need less manpower, the data processing is more accurate, and then there is less chance of fake registration, and very less paperwork is there, and lab reports are available instantly. X-ray, CT scan reports are available immediately. We have been able to save lakhs of rupees by not printing the sundry films where the requirement is very negligible. Wherever you need, you can film, take the prints of the X-ray pictures also. But otherwise, this can be avoided largely. The system becomes more efficient, and similarly, the management of drug inventory, data analysis, and policy decisions, they also become much easier. Similarly, we can reach out to the peripheral part of our society, because we know that the doctor-patient ratio in our country is still very poor, about 1:1,000, as against the requirement of 1:1,600. So therefore, every doctor cannot be expected that every village will have a doctor. So some of the services in the village where actually you don't need the inputs from the doctors, those can be taken up by the non-physician healthcare workers, such as ASHAs. If they are given an app, they are given a mobile phone or a tablet, through that they can actually record the various details of the patient, which can be directly transmitted to the district hospital, and there the decision making can be done. So the doctor services should not be utilized for sundry peripheral jobs at the village level, just for entering the data. These can be utilized for taking decisions as far as the patient's diagnosis and treatment is concerned. So we had done this project, and we found that we were able to utilize the services of the ASHA at the grassroots level in the villages, and with lesser number of doctors, you can reach out to several villages in a short period of time. So similarly, the right part of the image is missing, but we can actually use all these things on the through these mobile phones or tablet-based apps. Here, actually, we were doing this project with George Institute for Global Health, and they facilitated the conducting of this particular project using the mobile-based app at the peripheral level, and we were able to reach out to everybody in the villages. The other benefit of this e-technology is that you can reach out to the people in the periphery for providing consultations. So e-consultations can be provided to the patients, e-consultation to the peripheral physicians can be avoided who are treating there. So tertiary care physicians who are sitting in the major hospitals, they can provide this kind of services. And similarly, we can also utilize these ICT for health education programs at the community level and in various remote areas. The other areas where the e-governance can be utilized is e-administration. For running the university, you have to do so many other jobs. And if with the use of IT technology, you can make your administration more efficient, transparent, and accessible and accountable. And such as now in majority of the institutions, e-tendering is being followed. Similarly, we can have e-procurement system through the GEM portal of the central government. File tracking can be done. E-file tracking is now a routine with many institutions. Similarly, e-accounting and e-payment of wages. Earlier on, you had to pay wages to several outsourced workers, thousands of these people through manually. Now you can use that through the through opening the escrow account with the service providers. Similarly, the attendance can also be easily monitored through the online technology method. So therefore, with the use of ICT, the governance has become easier, more efficient, more transparent, and also this is also a way to root out corruption in some of these areas. Of course, as Dr. Amit Banerjee mentioned, the COVID-19 actually has been, this pandemic has been a game changer where we have been suddenly thrown into the field, And we have to, whether you wish or not, you have to adopt ICT in order to survive in the current and the future world. So the third part, which has been affected, and all of us we know, and by the pandemic, is that classes have been suspended. The biggest impact has been that, there has been closure of schools in more than 160 countries, which has impacted nearly 1.5 billion students, and over 300 million students have been impacted. Only in India, there have been tremendous economic impact. So today, if you are spending 300 to 400 crore rupees for opening a new medical college, I am sure with the online technology, you don't need to really have big libraries having, say, several thousand books. If you're going to have online books, online journals, you can save huge amounts of money, and you don't need so many big classrooms. So all these things can be actually amended. So the Medical Council of India also needs to have a relook at the minimum standard requirements for opening a new medical college. And once the e-education system is adopted, I'm sure the regulations are going to change quite a lot. So there have been a lot of benefits of the online teaching platforms, and such as it's user-driven, it's available on demand, and then more teaching opportunities are there. The students, they find it easy, better note-taking is there, and they can actually, if some students are slow learners, some are fast learners, so based on the individual requirements of students, they can be taught like that. Now, this is about 5-6 months back, we had Professor Vinod Paul at our place, who inaugurated e-classroom. Now, this e-classroom is linking our institution with 50 other medical colleges. And you see on the top the various colleges which were linked on the day of inauguration. And so if you are delivering a talk in one particular medical college and you need to connect with so many other colleges, this can easily be done. And this facility was provided to us by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. And I think it's not really very expensive. One can easily link to various constituent and affiliated colleges through the use of simple technology like this. So there are certain hurdles or difficulties in implementation of this, and some of the, just a minute. Yeah. One is the low computer literacy. We need to teach our, particularly I'll say the middle order generation and the older generation, because the younger generation is growing with the computers. So it is the teachers who are finding it a little more difficult to adapt to this system. So they need to be made more aware. And then, of course, we need to train them. Sometimes there is an operational reluctance, particularly in the older generation. There is also a phobia of technology. And then some people fear that computers might replace the human beings. We must know that computers are never going to replace the human being. If they are used properly, they can only assist the human beings in whatever they wish to do. Of course, once you want to have all these online education systems in place, initial cost is there. But once the initial cost is spent, after that, it becomes in the long run cheaper than the other methods. And of course, we have to make sure that in order to adopt all these things, we need to have very good internet connectivity, and then only we can utilize all these services. With these few words, thank you very much. Thanks, Professor Parija, once again. Yeah, over to the organizers. Connection nahi hai. Hello.
Yeah. So thank you so much, sir, for a very good talk which you had given.
Thank you.
And on behalf of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, on behalf of our Vice Chancellor, sir, we would like to thank you for so much for spending so much of time. So, as a last part of the talk, we would like to invite Professor S.P. Tyagarajan, sir. S.P. Tyagarajan, sir, will be talking about the challenges in implementation of e-governance. Professor S.P. Tyagarajan, sir, a medical microbiologist with his PhD and MD degrees and fellowship titles by National Academy of Sciences and National Academy of Medical Sciences. He has put in 50 years of teaching, research experiences in Tamil Nadu Medical Colleges, University of Madras, and Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. He has till date completed 60 research projects funded by various national and international funding agencies. He had been earlier the Vice Chancellor of University of Madras, and as of now, he has taken up the position of Professor of Eminence and Dean Research at Srihar, Chennai. We request Professor Tyagarajan, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. You're on, sir.
Thank you very much for this nice opportunity. I thank Dr. S.C. Parija for providing me this opportunity, as well as Balaji Vidyapeeth. It is a proud moment for me to share this program along with Dr. O.P. Kalra, my revered friend, as well as Dr. Amit Banerjee and Dr. A.C. Parija. As you have been hearing, e-governance in higher education institutions in general and health sciences institutions in particular has got both opportunities and challenges. We have heard from our earlier speakers about the plethora of opportunities that are there open to us, especially in the medical and health sciences institutions. But what is in reality that you are seeing is, while the opportunities are often told, the challenges are also equally projected by the stakeholder community of the higher education institution, may it be students or may it be faculty members or administration, including the management. If that be the case, why this apprehension is there in the minds of the stakeholders, and what are the difficulties in implementing a typical e-governance that is made available? What should be the way forward in handling this particular process is going to be the key aspect of my presentation. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the former President of India, has been one of the proactive person who has promoted e-governance in the Indian subcontinent. And he has actually said that it has to be taken to the citizen as a citizen-friendly exercise, because he said that it is so difficult to get e-governance to 1 billion people. So that itself is a big challenge, as he said. And we are now experiencing that. I would like to project in this context one of the recent ICT India working paper published in March 2020 by the Center for Sustainable Development, Earth Institute, Columbia University, titled E-Governance in Healthcare Sector in India.
Sir.
One of the important things that it has tabulated is that under the national level e-governance scheme in health and family welfare, we have about 52 different portals and services that are made available to the health sciences institutions, hospitals, and healthcare
Excuse
sectors.
me, sir. Professor, sir, can we share the PowerPoint, or you will share the PowerPoint from your end, or do you want us to share the PowerPoint from our end?
Is it not shared now? Oh, sorry.
So, just give me a minute. Just give us a minute. Give us a minute, sir.
You are sharing? Will I share it?
So would you be able to share from your end? Is it possible?
Yeah, I will do that. I will do that. Sorry.
Yeah, that'll.
Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir. Now we are getting it, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Now we are getting it, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I just gave an introduction only in the earlier slides about why it is becoming a challenge. And the main component I would like to highlight is that in March 2020, there has been an ICT India working paper published by Center for Sustainable Development at Institute, Columbia University, titled E-Governance in Healthcare Sector in India, wherein it has been very vividly narrated that the Government of India Health and Family Welfare Department has brought in a national level e-governance portals and services to a tune of about 52 different avenues. While I am not going to elaborate on all of them, but one point that I would like to communicate here is that while this needs to be a main and major component of dissemination to the students, faculty, and the stakeholders of the healthcare sector and health education sector, it has not been made that way. The main portals that are made available to the institutions are some of them which have been already highlighted by Dr. O.P. Kalra himself. The office automation, e-office, video conferencing facilities, digital payments, surveillance and monitoring like integrated disease surveillance program portal, process automation like hospital information system, drugs and vaccine distribution system, personal health record management system, etc., as well as the service delivery tracking, EHIMS, and Riksha, Ayushman Bharat, capacity building, telemedicine for National Medical College Network, etc. Why I am trying to highlight is we have not been able to reach to the end users the available facility, and hence that itself has become one of the challenges in implementing in toto what is available now. In spite of it, we have been able to introduce some level of e-governance in the health sciences institutions. While there is no national educational or e-governance portal exclusively for health sciences institution management, institutions have started introducing certain unstandardized institutional level e-governance systems, which are of varied quality and that are being implemented. That is why we are not able to have any proper monitoring and evaluation of the e-governance systems that are being practiced by the health sciences institutions. So what is happening is the actual objectives of e-governance of access, quality of work performance, affordability, transparency, expediency, and accountability could not be achieved because of the half-hearted approach and inadequate kind of the systems that are being adopted. So how can we handle this? What are the kind of challenges in the implementation of it? The first category is technical challenges in terms of the appropriate ICT infrastructure. Because we are not looking at it in totality, we don't provide the adequate ICT infrastructure, whether it is in hardware component or in the software component. Then privacy, security, and authenticity kind of policies and practices are not in place. The standards and processes and interoperability of the various systems that are available. For example, if there is an hospital information management system is there is no interoperability of that with the medical college and so many other kind of related things. That is about technical issue. When you go to organizational issue, many a times we may not get the top management support for implementing a total e-governance package. As it has been highlighted by our earlier experts also, there is resistance to change to the e-governance because of misconceptions and misconceived notions. And then we also don't want to collaborate in bringing up this kind of a paradigm change. And incidentally, we lack some qualified personnel and appropriately trained people too. The social issues are the digital divide or the low digital culture that is there at every level of the stakeholders. And of course, financial implications in the initial cost of setting up the systems as well as their maintainability, reusability. All these are also posing challenges in the implementation of the systems that are put in place. So what is needed in terms of this is the commitment which will lead into the processes that are required at the institutional level, and which will also change the mindset for preparedness at the administrative level. And cumulatively, both these will lead to quantifiable change. So we need to see that the processes in re-engineering, processes in improvement, reforms, optimization have to be taken it up, and it must be put into the preparedness activity relating to ICT architecture, the standards and technologies, the components of hardware, software, and network, more importantly, and the connectivity of bandwidth that is required in internet. All this comes as a combo for the preparedness. And then this, if these two are there, then that will definitely, we have to make the people aware about these availabilities and build up their capacity, conduct periodic training and the skill development, providing some legal framework on safety and security of the data. Then the implementation hurdles may be by and large handled effectively. Thus, the main issues which are posing challenges in the implementations are the ICT infrastructure weakness, as I told, in software, hardware, and network, lack of knowledge about e-governance, its architecture, systems, and technologies, lack of understanding about the difference between medical and IT domain expert. This is another important thing in health sciences institution. The medical people will think that IT is not cooperating with them as they want. The IT people will say that the medical fraternity are not understanding how they have to follow. This has been going on in loggerheads repeatedly in health sciences institutions. Then again, attempting to design and develop their own software, thinking that it will work out to be cheaper, many of the institutions try to design their own softwares that also lead into problems. Lack of security, privacy of information is another issue. Policy which are to be there on security, privacy, usage, and e-waste management are to be there. Resistant to change to e-governance and keeping the manual system by citing invalid reason is the kind of a concept that is there, which may also lead into corrupt practices being continued in institutions. And so we need to really bring in good alignment if we have to bring in the implementable ways of these ICT. So the reforms that are required are re-engineering and streamlining of the current processes that are practiced in the institution in all sectors of the functions, managing diverse technologies and removal of obsolescence, whatever that is old, then integration and interoperability of e-governance, other management information systems, legacy systems has to be there. Instead of keeping standalone systems operating, one of them not merging with the other, resulting in complication and not able to retrieve and archive data at the time of necessity is also posing a major problem. Connectivity, as it is already said, is again another major issue, in addition to the important area of education, training, and accessibility. Finally, let me try to say that we need to have integration of the various modules in a medical institution. As it has already been said, we have several modules: the student module, faculty module, admission module, hostel module. and hospital module and so many other things. But unfortunately, they are not being utilized in a manner that it has to be integrated, especially with the finance module, and that is posing a major challenge. Then as far as education is concerned, there is lack of understanding about the synchronous live education versus online education and their benefits, and there has to be a proper understanding and capacity building in that. Then bringing interaction, collaboration, responsive and learning outcome orientation in teaching, learning and research, and the performance evaluation has to be done in an ICT based manner, which again is a major challenge as of today. We talk about digital classrooms, smart classroom, etc., leading to virtual reality classrooms, augmented virtual reality, mixed reality learning, etc., leading to immersive learning. But then the collaborative learning is the current challenge in medical education, which needs to be relooked at in terms of trying to bring them together on an equal platform to the understanding of the end users. As I told you, the integration of the hospital management information system, EMR, PACS, laboratory information management system, teleradiology, telemedicine, etc., adopting international standards to meet the interoperability of transfer of patient data from one hospital to the other in terms of related usages should also have some policy guidelines and also an operational easiness. If we can try to tease out these kind of riddles which are there, which may be minor, but still we need to put our hearts and mind together in terms of capacity building, changing the resistance that is there at every level of the stakeholders. We will be able to reach out to the optimum level of success in bringing out this, for which the way forward is we must address holistically the legislative barriers, the financial barriers, the technology change has to be effected, the digital divide has to be addressed effectively, and also the mindset divide has to be addressed by assimilating and acquiring skills and training to adapt to all and e-governance digital schemes of Government of India. We have to put all the available systems in the routine educational and professional development programs of the university, health sciences institution, for students, for faculty, as well as to the administrative staff, so that they will know what is happening around them, and cumulatively, all of us will be able to contribute towards building up a digital health in Indian higher education institutions, which are particularly oriented towards healthcare institutions. Thank you very much. I think it is a collaborative effort that is more needed. And in this direction, I would like to thank Balaji Vidyapeeth for having taken up this particular endeavor of communicating to the stakeholders effectively about the usefulness of e-governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, Professor Thiagarajan, for your interesting deliberation on challenges in implementation of e-governance. I take this opportunity on behalf of our university, Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, to express my sincere thanks to all the participants, my good friend, Professor Amit Banerjee, for sharing his thoughts on e-governance in examinations, and Professor O.P. Kalla, discussing about current scenario of e-governance in Indian health science universities, and sir, you, Professor Thiagarajan, for concluding talk on challenges and various solutions. Again, I thank all of you. I also take this opportunity to thank all of our experts. In spite of their so busy schedule, they could make it to participate on this webinar on e-governance in Indian health science universities. This series of webinars, which we are hosting under the auspices of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth webinar SBB Connect, will be a regular affair. This will be conducted on a third Wednesday of every month. And this will cover various topics of contemporary interest. And I must take this opportunity also to thank all the participants. I'm very much confident this session was useful, and I like to invite you for our next session to be held on 15th July, third Wednesday. The topic of this seminar will be conveyed to you in due course of time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Wednesday, 15th July.
Thanks a lot to all the delegates who have participated through the Zoom link and also through the YouTube. And we have got a registration of more than 600 plus for the first SBV webinar, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor was saying. Through all the email addresses, we will send a feedback form, and we request you to send the feedback to us so that we will be able to build up more on it. Thank you so much. And on our Pondicherry style, we would like to say merci beaucoup, à bientôt, au revoir, which means that thank you so much, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you all.